especially some persons are worry boat.
Oh dear.
Janelle, you understand worry boat? You're saying amen to that, Natalie?
Yes, I agree.
Yes, okay.
Worry yourself to death.
It's like a predisposition
Yes.
to worry. Welcome to the New Foundation Christian Ministries B1 Marriage Ministry video podcast. I am your host, Donald McFarlane, and with me is
Your co-host, Natalie Irving Mattox.
very well. Well, we have come to a time that we cannot escape but to share on the whole matter of the COVID-19 pandemic and how this has been affecting and has the potential to affect marriages. And so, Natalie, you may care to just give us an introduction as to, we know how it's the Genesis being said, in different ways, but from a written perspective, what grabbed you?
Yes, well, in an article published by the Council of Europe, it said that there is an increase in the number of domestic violence, in particular violence against women in Europe and other member states. I've also seen where the World Health Organization has put on their websites resources to support violence against women and due to the increase amid the COVID-19 pandemic. So it has been a serious issue, and so we want to pay attention to what is fueling this situation.
So you, apart from that release, Natalie, you have been interacting with information, formally and otherwise. And there is a growing concern that there are persons who are suffering even mentally.
Yes.
On account of perhaps the lockdown that they are having and some resulting in domestic violence.
That's right.
Well, it's an interesting thing to talk about. I believe it to be
it is.
rather informative, but certainly beyond our scope and ability. We had to invite in a specialist,
Yes,
a counseling psychologist in that of Janelle Amoy Brooks, who is here to speak to us as we engage in this very important and sensitive matter. But before I even get into the details of Janelle's qualification and work experience, let's learn a little more about Janelle. Janelle, where you hail from?
I hail from Kingston.
That's a good one. But your genesis as a family is originally Kingston, Jamaica? Or?
My family is originally from Westmoreland.
Westmoreland. Look at that. That's my birth parish. Very well. And the Brooks, for me, is quite renowned in different ways. So I'm judging that perhaps Manning's, that course of,
Yes.
educational
Manning's runs
journey.
in the blood, yes.
Very well, very well. And what's your family like, Janelle?
My immediate family?
Like, your siblings and so on, if there are.
Well, immediate family, there are 2 of us. 3.
Counting.
2 of us. Let's just stick to 2 in my immediate family.
Yes.
My older sister, and a younger brother who behaves as if he is older.
Very well.
And then my extended family is very large on both sides being from Westmoreland.
Indeed. Okay, so like most persons, you kind of just migrated into the city here for studies and...
Well, my parents did.
Oh, they did.
Yes.
Okay,
my mother will say I'm born under the clock. So I'm
right. There you go.
Kingstonian through and through.
Right. So church, of course, there is a church background. I know you're Christian. And the church you now attend is...
Church on the Rock.
Family Church on the Rock. There you go. Janelle, what for you in your perhaps off time? What's your favorite pastime? What you do?
Going to the gym, although I can't do that now. Going to the gym, going to the beach, going out to eat with friends.
Yes.
Kind of boring, but yeah, that's it.
Okay, so you're keen about your physique and your health and so on. Very well. So there you have a little bit of that other side of Janelle, now resident on set, counseling psychologist. But Janelle has matriculated to the master's level where she is a Fulbright Scholarship you earned and pursue your studies in University of South Florida.
Yes.
That should have been subsequent to your undergrad program at University of the West Indies.
Yes.
Now, your master's, of course, was in rehabilitation and mental health counseling.
Yes.
Whilst I know that you had done an undergrad more on the, is it the business side? Yeah. So what occasion for this transition?
To be honest, I was pursuing marketing at the time. I had always had like a, love for psychology or, for helping people at the time. And then the turning point was when I lost a friend to suicide, subsequent to mental illness.
Right.
But unfortunately, UE being UE, no offense, it was hard to switch majors at the time. So I just had to continue with the program, and then I did a gap year, and then I did the master's.
Look at that. So something traumatic, one might say, was a genesis of your mental shift of wanting to pursue psychology.
Definitely.
Yes. But then tell me about the scholarship. This is not for the common persons. Tell me a bit about this. We cannot go further without learning.
At the time, I didn't know what the Fulbright Scholarship was, to be honest. I was just looking for ways to finance my education. Had applied for a couple scholarships at the time, but it's upon receiving the scholarship that I realized that it had some, excitement to it.
Yes.
More so when you actually get to the States, that, there's a lot of fanfare, there's a lot of receptions and socials. Out here, I feel like the Fulbright name is probably not as popular as we want it to be as alumni, and we're working on that. But yeah.
Right. So I took her there. But let me just make mention, because having, just scan your CV, which would not be able to go through the litany of, qualifications and all the certification of programs and the places you have worked and experiences. But you more so now substantially, you are with Caribbean Thoughts to Teens.
That's where I practice from.
That's where you practice from. So you tell me what happens there.
Well, as the name suggests, we see mainly adolescents and teenagers, young adults. So that's where I see the bulk of my clientele. I prefer working with young people, even though I can work with everybody and deal with a host of issues. But my passion is working with young people. So that's where I see them.
Great. And of course, you have spent some time with Singram Medical Center in Kingston, counseling clients using a variety of techniques such as cognitive behavioral therapy, solution focused therapy, and mindfulness. And like I said, the list continues of the many places that you have served and the vast experience that you'd have had over all these years. And certainly, I noticed as I'd looked at your CV that you lectured at different universities and so on. Quite an accomplished and amazing work you have been doing. But
thank you.
Here we are now, Janelle, to talk about COVID and its implication insofar as relationships are concerned, the trauma that it has caused. But I'll allow you to just, because obviously, as we said before, you have been exposed to some trauma. Certainly that gave rise to your pursuit of what is now your career path. How you describe trauma from where you sit?
Well, I would say trauma is anything. Well, trauma has to do with perception a lot of the times, because what is traumatic to me might not be traumatic to you. So, of course, we have events that across the board are traumatic. would be considered traumatic. In natural disasters, earthquakes,
Yes.
hurricanes, tsunamis, death
Yes.
is considered to be traumatic. But if I buck my toe right now, that might be traumatic for you, but it might not be traumatic for Natalie. It's a matter of perception when it comes down to certain things. So it is one experience or a series of experience that changes the way that you feel and you think in the moment, and that you re-experience the situation.
Very interesting. Well, I could almost say that there's a great misconception out there, because some people see trauma synonymous with events or incidences, but from what you're saying, it is how it impacts a person.
Yes, how it impacts the person, how the person perceives it. Because even though there are some events that we're going to broad brush and say are traumas, people still receive it differently and are impacted by it differently. An earthquake might be scary for me in the moment. For another person, every time there's a little bit of rattling, they might start to get anxious. So it's also the response that can determine what a trauma is for a person.
Janelle, this is taking us into very meaningful discussion for me.
Yes.
Because it would seem to me, as you come to us now from a clinical perspective, that personalities may have a significant role to play in terms of how an event traumatizes somebody, if that's a way of saying it.
Definitely.
Yes? So, as you may mention, let's go back to the earthquake. So the earthquake might be scary for somebody, and when a place shakes after that, you're just traumatized because you remember. And then, as weird as it may sound, an earthquake shaking for somebody who's kind of carefree may just enjoy the movement of the earth under the feet.
Or maybe they're scared in the moment, but after it passes, they're able to return to normal.
Yes. So then, great is your task on this program to help us to understand and how to respond to what is, I have to now change my language in talking to you, what is more trauma potential events. Yes. And to help us get through that. So, Nats, you want to jump out of the blocks to ask her a question?
Yes, I'd like to find out from you. So you've spoken about trauma, but there's also the whole aspect of fear that contributes to how individuals may behave. And in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, I think it's a time, it fuels fear.
Definitely.
And I find a lot of people are fearful. So I would want to ask you, you have been seeing patients. Is this something that you've noticed for the past few weeks? Are you getting any more than normal cases as a result of what is happening? And how do you think that the fear is really impacting the patients?
And just before, may I just add, as you consider answering, is it all right? You could include this in your response. Is it all right to fear?
Yes.
Fear is normal, fear is natural, fear has its place. Fear signals to us that something is not necessarily wrong, but off key. The fear response is what can become problematic. What we do in response to fear, if it's going to change the way that we act or think, then that's when it becomes problematic. I think with something like COVID, I think for the most part, I know we have people who have lived through different experiences. I think for the most part, for this, what would we say, generation or cohort of living people, this is the first time, maybe since the Spanish flu, that there was something that everybody was experiencing at the same time.
Yes.
which says a lot. You know, there's community in it, meaning that we are literally all experiencing the same thing at once. Right. We may be experiencing it differently, but we're all experiencing the same thing. So as it relates to patients, I would say that logistically, I have not been able to see as many patients as I would usually because, of course, social distancing, and some people are afraid to come out of their house, and the practice has had to cut back hours, etc. So I wouldn't say numerically I've seen more patients because logistically I can't. Yes. But I've had more phone calls. I've had more people reaching out for appointments, which are now done online, of course. Yes. I've had, I would say, more anecdotal, I could say, scrolling through Twitter or Instagram, more people being vocal about how this thing is affecting them. I know that people are anxious, people are scared because of the novelty, like I said, the novel coronavirus. We don't know what to expect. Yes. Every day is different. Yes. You know, last week we were on this curfew, this week we're on another curfew, next week we don't know what it's going to be. So it's like every day it changes. So with that uncertainty comes a level of anxiety. I think too, because it is now here and our number of cases are growing, of course that brings a level of fear as well, or at least not, if not fear, concern. So definitely people are waking up, so to speak, and some people are not dealing with it. I don't want to say as they should, because I don't know if there's any wrong or right way to really deal with this thing, but some people are having more exaggerated responses than others in terms of anxiety and fear. And I think that is also normal given the situation and the uncertainty that it brings. Yeah.
Okay, so just to a follow-up then, Bishop. So, like I notice people are just throwing information all over the place. You know, they're sharing everything, sometimes to my disgust, to be honest with you. Is that a normal reaction? How would you advise people to at least either to pull back a bit, or people should be more understanding of people sending them the information and not be as annoyed as I get? Just talk a little bit more about that actual, you know, behavioral. Yes.
I think some of it is panic, but in a looser sense of the word. You know, we have a lot of conspiracy theorists. I won't even bother to list them all, the ones that I've heard. I think some of it is panic, why people send all this information, or why people want to receive all this information, because we know that there's some people who they're tuned to the news, to CNN, to Twitter, whatever it is, all day, every day. So I think because it's so uncertain, people want to feel a sense of preparedness, and some of that comes with all of that information. Okay. So that may give them a sense of, okay, there's nothing that is going to hit me off guard, so to speak, because I have all the WHO articles and all of the whatever. So I think there's like almost like a defense mechanism, like people want to feel some sense of security. But information overload is a real thing. Yes. There comes a point in time where I would say for the day you just shut off the news or the scrolling of social media, because it's a lot. And we can get overloaded. And then for those of us, because I share that same sentiment, Natalie, that get annoyed with the broadcasts and the videos that come and what. There sometimes I'll just open, especially if it's a WhatsApp group, open it just to clear the notifications, and that's it. You know, because I understand that that's how some people are, but I understand myself that I don't want that information. That's so I just, you know. But people need to be mindful of just balance. You know, information, too much information is a bad thing, as well as not being informed is equally as bad. So just, you know, balance it out.
Right. So from what we see, like you said, I hear you say that change, because of how things have been changing and how rapidly the changes are taking place, and the uncertainty of what is next, are some of the contributing factors to person becoming concerned or even traumatized, and then there are behavioral patterns that come out of that. So in this environment that seemingly one doesn't have a control over, the pandemic is here, and it is, I'm not sure where our curve is at this time.
Yes.
Before we even get with our real niche market of speaking to how trauma and COVID affect marital relationships.
Yes.
I'm out in the broader space of relationships now, where these uncertainties affect how we relate to ourselves and to one another. Yes. So I'm sort of just, seeking from you, how do I hear you say perhaps shut down the source of information. Interestingly, if I may just a reference here, some persons may have missed my most recent sermon
It was really
on
good.
the determined mind.
Yes.
And actually, I was emphasizing the need to disconnect in many ways. And I won't go through my sermon because I want to hear from not from the pastor now, but the psychologist. As it relates to personally amplify a little more, especially some persons are worry boat.
Oh, dear.
Janelle, you understand worry boat? You're saying amen to that?
Yes, I agree.
Yes, okay.
Worry yourself to death.
It's like a predisposition
Yes.
to worrying even before the event, and they are not yet traumatized. How can we speak to those persons from your desk, Janelle?
I mean, like you said, there are some people who their personalities are like that, and I won't make a judgment as to whether it is good or bad. That's just how those people are. But people who are natural warriors need to be more mindful of how they are and how information affects them. Yeah, so they need to practice more mindfulness, more staying in the present, because of the fact that their personality naturally inclines them to worry. So they need to be able to accept that of themselves and work within the confines of their personality.
All right, so clearly.
Yeah. When you say mindfulness, so what? Yes.
I mean, mindfulness is a fairly, I would say, broad concept, but mindfulness is just being aware of your mind, being aware of your thoughts, being aware of your thought patterns, staying in the present, because some people either worry a lot about the past or they fret a lot about the future.
Right.
So staying in the moment, realizing when you're getting off key, being able to center yourself through like breathing and meditation, accepting situations for what they are and not what we want them to be, So just a state of just always being aware of what's going on with yourself, but not hyper vigilant.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like a balanced approach to monitoring your thoughts and how you're feeling in your body, those kind of things.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
For somebody who is listening in and seem to feel helpless about this mindfulness and center of gravity, balancing of self, working against your very natural propensity to worry and so on. I hear you say deep breathing and stuff like that. I wonder what additional may be done for me who seem to, I know that these things bother me. But even when I turn off the source of media or telephone, my own internal thoughts seem to be overpowering me of my fears and so on. Do I yoke myself to a kind of, mentor who helps me? Because I'm seeking help now for persons like that to strengthen their minds. So I like your expression, to stay in the present.
Yeah. I think what just came to my mind a while ago is having an accountability partner. With whatever you're struggling with. But if that is your struggle, then having somebody kind of that you can check in with when you feel like you are getting anxious or your thoughts are racing, knowing that person won't always be available. So, somebody that you can check in with. If needs be and you need to do therapy, then of course I'm going to recommend that.
Right.
But just for people who are naturally like that or find themselves being like that more often, I would just remind them that it's a marathon and not a sprint. There is no magic pill.
Right.
There are pills and they're still not magic. It still takes time. So you have to be patient with the process, especially if you've been like that for a number of years. Then it's going to take some time to get you out of certain habits.
We would like the counseling psychologists to weigh in
I agree
with us on the relational issues in this. So let's hold it right there. We come back with the counseling psychologist, Janila Moy Brooks. We thank so much our resident counseling psychologist here on the set, Janil Amoy Brooks, for representing on the B1 Marriage Ministry video podcast. Next time when we invite her, we'll talk about the spouse that the Lord will give her. But that being said, we want to thank as usual our producer George and our sponsor Mattox
Health and Fitness. Yes. We also want to thank our viewers. Please remember to continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Press the bell. It's a New Foundation Christian Ministries. Also on Facebook, it's a New Foundation Christian Ministries. Remember to like our Facebook page. And remember, you can also like or follow us on Instagram at NFCM Official. Thank you. Goodbye.
All the best. See you next time.